Well, thank
Good
you.
morning.
Thank you very much. And yes, it is a pleasure to be in this wonderful group here today. Unfortunately, we're through this medium, which actually is a good thing that we have it. Otherwise, we'll be out there, totally incommunicated. So yes, the detention center. I'm hankering to go back in there as soon as we are allowed. But first, let me read this poem to you, which is in my new book. My experience at the detention center and why I became interested in mentoring the youth in detention. And besides that, there's also a personal reason, which I will not talk about it here today. There are seeds that are blown by the wind. There are seeds that are planted by human beings. Those seeds will grow into beautiful flowers and trees. Those are the powerful seeds of knowledge mankind needs. The seeds will germinate, throwing roots expanded like fingers, grabbing hold of the earth. The roots contain well-being, grandiosity, wisdom, virtue, truth, pride, glory, faith, harmony, agreement, disagreement, tranquility, ancestry, principle. The roots will give way to the branches, providing leaves, foliage, and fruit. Reason must be at the base of all that flourishes. Think of the dervishes' dance, who whirl and whirl away. There's a cosmic dance through the human forest, where we encounter people from different places and different faces. I am one of those trees. I unravel my branches to provide fruit and shelter to the seeds I planted. These seeds I share fruit and shelter with the youth in perilous situations. Compassion and an open heart are the tools I use to help them free themselves from the trauma and pain in their heart. Poetry is the carving tool I use to remove the stumps that hold them down. The words come out of their hearts like seeds, germinating to create their own poems. Poetry they didn't realize they already had. When the young are praised, their faces gleam like the sunshine in the early spring. Their poems are gems strung together like diamonds after the rain. Next is titled Women Are, and this is not to patronize you, ladies. You got all my respect, so this is in praise to all of you, because my wife is a woman, my daughter is a woman, my mother was a woman. Why should I not revere all women? And you're included here. From Coatlicue to Sor Juana Inés, women from all ethnicities have walked this earth with their tireless feet, giving birth, giving life. Rigoberta Menchú, Guatemala City, La Soldadera, las Adelitas guerrilleras, Frida Kahlo, pintora, Cisneros, escritora, Lila Downs, cantora con su voz, sing songs to all, rich, poor, happy or not. Desperate lament of love. Pen in hand, Castellanos writes poems, black ink bleeding on paper white, indelible as doves. Maria Sabina, mushroom priestess, women are sustainers, protectors, peacemakers, and warriors. Beacons of humanity. Women are powerful. Women have the wisdom of the Creator. They bear life. Without women, men cannot survive. Women are the yin of life. Their nurturing and motherly love make men out of children. Women know what we men don't. Women have a golden aura. Women shine. Women have charming power. Women change things. Women give life. Women give love. Women are curanderas, healers. Women are shamans. Women can bring down the sun and the stars if they want to. Women are the beauty of the world. And I mean that. This next poem is very short. It's for everybody out there in Titan over the years, from where I have been and learned so many things. It's titled Titan's Bounty. There is a hidden place atop the yellow hills where poems and apples grow, orchards as far as the eye can see. Black-billed magpie wings flapping, dogs running, chipmunks jumping, raccoons eating falling apples, and the casual skunk. Maybe a distraction, but certainly not for the poets. They sit cross-legged under the trees, poets writing on spiral notebooks, sweet poems amidst the pink ladies, red delicious, sweet like limericks and sonnets. Up there lies the hidden place where poems and apples grow, honed down, shaped under the sun. Fluttering leaves fall like words onto their notebooks, poetic words grown, poems infused with apple fragrance, crisp, clean, gentle as the wind, born under the sun and the urgent river below. It is an absolute pleasure to introduce Claudia Castroluna, a friend and the former Washington State Poet Laureate. I must say that Claudia, Rena, and I have something in common. We are all Jack Straw writers. Claudia and I were in the 2014 program curated by Felicia Gonzalez and Rena Priest in the 2019 program curated by Kathleen Flanagan. While they became state laureates, I became the poet laureate for the city of Redmond, Washington. There is also a continental bond between us. We carry Indo-American blood. The roots that sustain our creative spirit and our individuality are also the ideological approach to our work. I feel I'm in good company and ready to continue learning from both of them while I continue to spread poetic seeds in the classroom with the domestic workers, the youth in detention, as well as the curious and sometimes serious writers, either in English or Spanish. I'm honored to have the opportunity to express my admiration and respect for both Claudia and Rena in front of my Lead Fuse family, a family I joined from the very beginning, thanks to Michael Shine. Please welcome Claudia Castro Luna. Thank you so much.
Gracias, Raúl. Muchas gracias. Estoy en buena compañía, estoy de acuerdo. Thank you so much. Buenas noches a todos y todas. Good evening, everyone. Raúl, that was so heartfelt. Thank you. I've forgotten about Jack Straw, but this is so true. That we were in the same cohort and that Rena is also part of the Jack Straw family. That's a wonderful connection. Yeah, there we go. Our postcards. And Lit Fuse too is another one of those communities that run deep in Washington State and in so many of us. It is really deep pleasure to be here and to have spent time in workshops and to see familiar faces in the little tiles, and just the fact that we are able to gather here and just continue, we're making that happen. So thank you so much to Lauren and Laura and Jen and everybody that played a role in making this happen. Thank you. It is really one of the highlights of the literary year in Washington State and beyond, I'd say, Lit Fuse is. So such an honor to give the keynote this year. In preparation for fall classes, and in part because I've been working on editing a new poetry manuscript, I got to thinking about the process of revision and the interplay between craft and the imagination. And it is those thoughts that I bring to you tonight. The title of the talk is Leave the Gate Open on the Way Out, which I imagine my grandmother saying, don't close the door, don't close out all the possibilities, leave it open, let energies come in. We never know what's going to happen. I've said before that writing is about the heart, while revision and editing are about the head. The poem is feeling. The editing of a poem is thought. This is the paradigm I've operated under, though recently I've been moving away from the word thought in favor of the word imagination. Mary Oliver, in her poetry handbook, writes that although poems begin in experience, they are not in fact experience. not even a necessarily exact reportage of an experience. She says the poems are imaginative constructs. George Lucas, in his theory of the novel, writes that art always says, and yet, to life. The creation of forms, he says, is the most profound confirmation of the existence of a dissonance. The created construct has a shape. This form is the writer's attempt to capture the dissonance between herself and the world. The form, the poem, the sonnet, the villanelle, the pantoon, what we produce is our effort at connecting those two realms, the self and the world. We create a thing, a construct. We shape it, we mold it, cut it, splice it, reorganize it, manipulate it, edit it to death, or in hubris, under-edit it. The hope is, of course, that it convey to the reader the thing that we felt as it first sizzled in our hearts and minds, in our heart and minds. Brenda Ueland says the writing conveys a current of energy. Brenda Ueland wrote a wonderful book about writing called If You Want to Write. And in this book, she talks about writing being a current of energy. And we want our readers to see that what we saw, feel what we felt, taste what we tasted, and do this. We do this with words. We do it through language. Of course, there's rare occasions when a poem is born whole. It happens. I think it has happened to all of us. But for the rest of the time, writing is a process. It entails real work. And sometimes it takes years to arrive at a complete construct, to use Mary Oliver's term. I mean, how many drafts would you say it takes you to feel satisfied with a poem? I'm actually very curious. Put it in the chat. This is something that we could do in this gathering that we could not do if we were in person. So feel free to put in the chat how many drafts you go through to feel that you're arriving at a construct that feels whole, right? So many, yes, at least a dozen, 2 to 3, 5 to 6, 5 to 10, maybe. Mary Oliver wrote in her book that it took her 40 to 50 before she felt she was getting close. So what is it that is happening in us and in the poem during that process of editing and revision? And yes, it depends on what we're writing. It depends on where we enter the poem. It depends on many things, right? But this idea that we're going back and revisiting what we have written to get it to a place other than where it is. We're sharpening this construct. We're moving it along. We're bringing it closer to our field of experience. But my thinking led me to consider what is it that's happening in that in between from when the poem is written and becomes a draft to when we decide it's done. I give my beginning students a sheet with craft elements to consider when revisiting their poem. Tone, rhyme, word choice, repetition, line length, images, etc. are all part of this sheet. These craft considerations are very important, of course, but I would argue it is not all that goes into the revision process. I would say part of revision is craft, and part of it is an internal process that comes from the awareness of our constant rubbing against our daily lives. Sometimes after tinkering and considering this word over that word, and this line break choice over that one, we lose perspective. I'm sure you've all been told that it's a good idea to put a poem you are working on away for a couple of days to see it again with fresh eyes. We want the poem to have wings, in quotation marks. And sometimes to get closer to those wings, it is best to let the poem be. The point is to walk away, but the essence of the poem stays with us. We remain within what Barbara Guest calls the field of poetic creation. The poem stays inside us, dancing and moving and twisting, gestating in the amniotic fluid of our minds and guts. What if, after sitting at your desk working on a poem, you go on a walk and come across a butterfly that remembers you and you her? And that exchange releases something that later rearranges the poem. Or going half demented for the first time up the killer stairs by your house, the word that has evaded you starts throbbing in your big toe. We can only hear the butterfly or our toe if we are open enough to let their voices in. It's not just time away from the work in progress that makes us go back to it with new eyes. It is what happened inside of us in the interim and that we bring to the poem when we sit back to it that makes a difference. If we are open to the world and to the churning of our imaginations, we allow the unexpected to filter in and disrupt our formulaic view of life, as Guest calls it. And this then finds its way into our written work. In other words, it's necessary to leave the gate open. As the writer Sumana Roy said in a recent conversation, life is not curated for us. What makes lives beautiful is the unexpected. Creation rewards accidental thinking, she called it. I spoke before in this talk of the poem having wings. Here's the full quote. And this is from Barbara Guest. Quote, "We have learned that words are only utensils. They are inorganic unless there is a spirit within the poem to elevate it, to give it wings, so that the poem may soar above the page and enter our consciousness where we may, if we wish, give it a long life." Just like the poems that Raul and Rena read resonated deeply within me and will stay inside. They will stay, I will carry them. They are now part of me. True revision then requires intellectually driven craft considerations and an openness of self to the workings of the imagination. Children know this very well, as even in their unawareness, they are all artists. My own 3 children produced an astounding amount of art. And those of you who have been parents or are parents or have parented others and have seen kids in action know this. Some of the art my kids produced was very, very good. Some of it was not so good. Some of it was bad, but some of it was genius, a pure distillation of spirit. To tap into the deepest well, a playful attitude is essential. Not play in the sense of competition and strategy and rules, not what I call patriarchal play, but play in the sense of stepping into it with wonder and love, with marginal specifications and basic supplies, above all with mental freedom. We have to grant ourselves mental freedom, and this is hard to do. Free of rules and expectations, a true exploration is possible. In that open space, we may delight in ambiguity and surprise. We open ourselves to accidental thinking, as Sumana Roy speaks about. We make ourselves open to seeing and feeling the interconnectedness of things, which is the terrain of metaphor, which is another way of saying we make ourselves open to the poetry of things. In the essay, Playfulness, World Traveling and Loving Perception, the writer Maria Lugones writes, "This play is a particular metaphysical attitude that does not expect the world to be neatly packaged or ruly. Rules may fail to explain what we are doing. We are not self-important. We are not fixed in particular constructs of ourselves, which is part of saying that we are open to self-construction. Editing works that way too. Remaining open to the unexpected connections in us later may enter the poem, We write ourselves, we write our bodies, we write ourselves into being in the writing that we do. To make a poem soar means to dance on the arch of craft and the imagination. Both things are equally necessary. A technically proficient poem is just that. But what we are after is for our readers to feel the spirit moving within. We want our poems to have wings. We do that by freeing the power of our imaginations. And I have a very short poem to share, sort of to wrap that up. And this poem is titled Road Flower, and I wrote it after a long walk in the countryside. We were talking this morning about walking and the falling action that happens in walking. You take a step, and the next stride is a falling of a sort. So I was asking folks to let themselves fall into that gap, and in that gap to notice and to be aware, because that awareness then, if we jot it down, if we take a quick note, or just if we allow ourselves complete openness to that moment, may show up later in our work in the form of very rich detail. So I went on this walk. It was July, that was this year, and the road was lined with flowers, just wildflowers, lots of poppies, yellows and creams and deep orange poppies, and just all kinds of just flowers just bursting on the side of the road. And I found myself unable to resist their call. So I kept on stopping and thinking, oh my God, it was high noon. So the sun was coming down squarely. It was a sunny day. Each flower just was so unbelievable. I would stare, bend down, kneel, look at these flowers and just think, there is no way there's one more beautiful than this. And then down the road, there was another flower that was just as exquisite. And I was just in this ecstatic mode on this walk, just enjoying these flowers. I know we all do this. I'm narrating to you this kind of this ecstatic walking moment that I had that later showed up in this poem. Road flower. Nothing dies, so I'm told. Things transform, they insist. Today, I am a woman. Tomorrow, I will be a flower, one of many along a country road. Choose me, bend toward me. Take in my spring essence. Let it seep into your dreams. Feast your eyes on me. Love yourself. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us tonight. It's been an amazing adventure. It's incredible to read with Rena, Raul here at LitFuse. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, and have fun tomorrow and come back next year. This is a place to return to again and again. All best to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Claudia. And